Well, hello, and welcome to our restorative practice for our sacral chakra. So, the poses that we're going to practice today are intended to complement the yin practice and the flow practices that will be posted with this video. When we get into each pose, once we're kind of settled in, or I've guided you through a few different options for how to get comfortable. And again, please always know these are just options that I give based off of my own experience in my body practicing the positions and the experience from teaching other people with different bodies and what they find comfortable. But they're just a starting point. So always listen to your body and do what feels good inside of your own body. The intention behind these poses is to get really comfortable. I grabbed 2 blankets and a cushion and a strap. If you don't have a yoga strap available to you, you could use the belt from a housecoat would be awesome. Any sort of belt that you have, you're basically looking for like a long piece of fabric. If you don't have one available to you, this strap I think that I have here is an 8-foot strap, 6-foot strap. Can't remember right now. Anyways, it's long. It's a fairly long piece of fabric. If you don't have something that's this long, you can omit it completely, and it's really not a big deal. But if you do have it, it's only here for one specific pose to add something that will make the pose feel possibly a little stronger. For some people, it might feel nicer. So it's only one option in one pose. If you have something, you have it. If you don't, you don't. I get sidetracked. Not sidetracked, but I get rambly sometimes. So my apologies. Anyways, 2 blankets and then a cushion, like a couch cushion or like a throw cushion, something that's maybe not quite as soft as your bed from your pillow from your bed. And if that's all you have, then that is perfect and it will work. You can also grab way more than this. If you have a few nice blankets that you want to practice with, I really like these woven blankets for support in the poses. But if you're wanting to be warm while you practice them, any blanket at all. It could be like a big fluffy one, a fuzzy one, anything at all. I just prefer the woven blankets for the firmness if I'm supporting my body with them. And then again, if you're at home practicing this, you use what you have. You can even use, I would rather personally use like a rolled up towel or a folded up towel than like a comforter for support in these postures, if that makes sense. All right, so before we start to practice, we're gonna do 3 poses. Once you get led into them, you can pause the video. I'll give you maybe suggestions for how long to hold the pose, but then again, listen to your body, hold it for as long as you'd like to, and then I'll walk you out of the pose and into the next pose. Are you ready? Okay, let's take a moment to just land in our bodies here. So focusing on breathing in and breathing out, nice and slow. Slowing down our breathing little by little, starting to take more air in, really feeling our ribs expand as our lungs fill. Exhaling nice and slow, like a gentle release, not pushing or forcing, but giving time for more air to come out. One last breath here. Maybe take our chin in a little closer to our chest, lengthening through the back of our neck just a little bit. Hands might come together in front of our heart. And if it's your preference, maybe take a moment here to set an intention for our practice today. Ready to start our restorative practice. So again, we're only going to do 3 poses. So this could be a relatively quick relaxation practice, depending on how long you hold the poses for, or it can be a much longer relaxation practice, depending on how long you hold the poses for. So the very first pose that we're going to come into is going to be a reclined bound angle. So reclined bound angle, I'm going to show it to you in a way that would be, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to come into this, keeping in mind the fact that you're practicing at home and you may or may not have access to the number of props that you would have in a studio. This is different than how I would teach it if I was teaching restorative practice in the studio and I was able to offer everyone the props that we usually use. But I'm going to show you this also using some props as if you have them. And some of these words are, I'm going to go like, I would say most days speaking is an adventure, because the things that come out of my mouth sometimes make an incredible amount of sense. So I'm going to start by showing you from facing forward. And then I'm going to turn to the side for the second explanation of starting to lower myself back down. The reason that I'm doing reclined bound angle here is because we did a lot of, in the practices that we're doing for this series, this specific energy center, we did a lot of like rolling out of our thigh bones and like pulling them in close to our body. So in our practices, that was like a move that was repeated often. So in this restorative pose, I want to change it slightly for the first pose and then more pronounced for the next couple of poses. So, and then to try to bring a little bit of balance to some of the poses that we repeated there. Anyhow, couple of different things that can feel really nice in this pose. So butterfly pose, or our bound ankle, starts with the soles of the feet coming towards each other. They don't have to come all the way together. They could be a little bit apart. And for some people, you can also play with how close your feet are into your groin. You feel like farther away is a little bit less intense. You feel like closer is a little bit more intense. That being said, the whole purpose of this practice is to not have the pose really feel intense in your body. It's supposed to feel very soft, very subtle sensation. So, in some people's bodies, the knees will come down towards the floor, or even I have lots of friends and students whose knees can come like almost right down and lie on the floor, or at least the outer kind of corner where the bend is can come to the floor. So that works in some people's bodies. Without forcing my body, without forcing my knees down, this is where my knees rest. For some of my students, not forcing and just resting, their knees are up here. Some of that is soft tissue, so how much our muscles will let us move into that. Some of it is like the bone structure of your hip joints. So Don't force it. It doesn't have to look any specific way. It has to feel nice in your body. That's the only requirement of this specific practice and this specific pose in this practice. So let's back this up. I got ahead of myself. Option one option of many, is with these two blankets, I could roll them into little logs and I could put them underneath my knees. So the farther away from my hip this little rolled up blanket or towel is, the more feeling of stretch I'm still going to have, because my knees are going to be closer to the ground. I can also take this in so it's more like towards my ankle and up by my hip. And that is going to support me with a smaller enough range of motion and less sensation. So one of these may feel better for you than the other. Another, probably one of my favorite ways to come into this pose is take my blanket. I want to make like a fairly long little roll here. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to keep my feet covered still because they're chilly. You could roll all the way up and not cover your feet. But I'm going to take this in front of my ankles, underneath my, or in front of my feet, under my ankles and under my hips. And again here, this could go in real close or it could go in far, but it just has that extra like tucked in feeling in the front of my legs and kind of holds them there. In my personal practice, feeling tucked in or bound up is comforting. It's not comforting for everybody. So if you try something like this and you're like, that feels awful, or you feel claustrophobic, you don't have to do it at all. You could come back to just the tucked in on the sides, which would feel much more open. The last one I wanted to show you here was the variation where you could use, the strap that I mentioned before, or like the housecoat belt or whatever. So this one has that same tucked in feeling in the front of the feet, but it also has that on the top of the legs. So for this one, kind of start in under my butt a little bit. I don't want this buckle resting on my body, so I might have to reposition and kind of position, so you don't want this to be pressing into your skin really. May not be comfortable, but I'm going to bring this over my thighs. I'm going to bring under my feet. So this is coming in front of my shin, under my feet, and then up the other side. And then if I had like a housecoat belt, I could just tie this. If I have like a yoga strap, then I'm just going to loop it. Whatever we're using, we're going to try to just make it so that we can tighten this up. I'm going to bring this fairly tight because I want this a little bit tighter, and this is getting really close to my skin. I'm just going to shift this a little bit, and I'm going to pull tighter. So any or no versions of this that I just showed are usable, and feel free to also play around with your own ideas for how you're going to support your legs. The next part of this is that we're going to come down towards the ground. So again, depending on what your body likes and what feels comfortable for you, this right here, I would say, is not how you would teach this pose in a typical restorative yoga practice, because my arms are working to keep me in this position. But if you're at home and coming all the way to the ground doesn't feel comfortable in your body, then this is kind of somewhere in the middle. You could also just stay like this. You don't even have to lean back. You could also possibly have like a wall close in behind you, and then just ever so slightly recline towards the wall. I'm gonna take this off just so I can kind of move around while I'm showing you some of the different ways that we can support under our back. So We could be like here. You could come down here. If you can get down here, you can probably use some props around your home to support you from here, if coming back this far feels comfortable. So a couple of different ideas. One would be to take my throw cushion, and if I want this a little bit higher, I can always add like another tier onto that. And then I'm gonna make like a little makeshift bolster here with my other blanket. I'm gonna roll it into another little log. I'm gonna set it up like this. So from my perspective, I have like a little T. And I'm gonna start close back here and then slowly come down. And the length of this specific setup in my body hits kind of just where my spine comes into my skull is where the top of that blanket sits. So it feels like it's supporting my head, but I'm also getting a little bit of a stretch, or it feels like it's kind of lifting a little bit, which feels nice, and it may not for you. So you have to kind of play around here and see what is feeling the best. We could also come a little bit lower with this. So maybe we do like just the two blankets rolled up. So same little T shape there, but just a little bit closer to the ground. So there's a few different options. Take a moment, play, find where you're comfortable. And then we're going to settle in and hold into this pose for between 5 and 15 minutes. Again, here, I wanted to say one other thing too. I'm just going to grab another blanket to show you something. I apologize. If you are using, if you didn't like the feeling of being maybe like that strapped in feeling where it feels restrictive, like you can't move, but you like that kind of push down on your legs, you can always use extra weight to get a similar sensation. In the studio, we would use sandbags. So you could use things here like a folded blanket. You could use, if you have books that are like a similar weight, you could put the blanket on and then rest books on for a little bit more weight. I would say that if I was adding weight onto my legs and my knees don't touch the floor, which mine don't, I would also support under my bones with a blanket so that I can really relax my muscles. So I'm not fighting to resist the weight, if that makes sense. So, anyway, now you can pause this here, set a timer for between 5 and 15 minutes, and then we'll come out of the pose together when you're done. So coming back out of this pose here, I'm going to bring my knees together first if I'm not bound. If I am bound and I can reach the prop that I'm using to bind my legs, then I can undo that. From here. So if I'm not bound, I'm going to bring my knees together and then over to the side and then slowly come up. If I am bound here like this, then I might kind of bring my hands on my hips and elbows underneath me, and lift, pause, push my hands into the floor, lift myself up a little bit higher, pause, and then come all the way upright, and then undo my prop. I'm going to try to transition from one pose to the next, nice and slowly, as slowly as we can, to kind of keep that settling feeling. Okay, so coming into the next pose, we're going to start to really stretch out the front of our hips here. So we're going to support underneath our bum to lift our hips higher away from the floor. And there's going to be, again, lots of variations on how we can come into this pose. The higher your hips are away from the floor, the more sensation of stretch you might feel in the front of your hips. So I'll show you a couple of different options here. So one, we could come down onto our back and start with knees bent. I can lift my hips, slide this little cushion underneath. And then I can stay right here. If this is already feeling nice, I could stay right like this. I could also start to walk my feet away from my bum. I could come all the way out so that my legs are straight. A nice stretch right here. If this isn't high enough, I could even just do something like switch the way that my pillow is underneath me. So if I kind of fold it in half, a little bit higher away from the floor, this blanket, just keep moving closer to it. So here, wiggle around, adjust. I want to make sure that the bony part of my pelvis is supported by the prop underneath me. And I could stay just like this, or I could start to walk my feet away from my body, stretch it even farther. Now I'm getting a slightly bigger stretch here. Now, if I feel like a nice stretch, but I'm still able to soften my body, that's okay. If I'm feeling a big stretch and my body is like tightening up to resist that so that I don't accidentally go too deep into the stretch, then maybe I pull back a little bit, step my feet back a little bit, or lower my hips closer to the floor. Another thing that can be really nice here is adding on some weight. I really love to have the weight on top of my hips when I come into this pose. So having a blanket, having two blankets, having in the studio, I normally would use like a sandbag, anything heavy that you could put on here. Like if you're in your house, like if you have like a good sized bag of rice, you throw a bag of rice on your hips here. And then start to slow down, breathing, and settle in. Again, remembering too, blankets could be on my hips and I could have my knees bent. So you can take a moment to move your awareness around your body, starting maybe in the toes and slowly scanning upwards, checking to see if you can relax your body any more than it already is. As you relax, you might find that maybe your knees want to roll in towards each other or away from each other a little bit. Maybe they stay kind of lined up with your hips if your knees are bent. If your legs are straight, it might be more like as the hips relax, thighs might roll out or in and toes might follow instead of the knees moving a lot. So once you get comfortable, you can set a timer for between 5 minutes and 15 minutes. And after that is done, come back and then pause the video and we'll come out of this pose together. Coming out of this pose here, I can bend my knees. I can bring my blankets off of my body. I'm going to lift my hips. And take that prop out from underneath me and settle all the way back down to the ground. We get ready to move into our next pose. So again, I'm going to give you a couple of options. So because of the poses that we did, and the asymmetrical poses, we were kind of rolling out one thigh bone and then rolling out the other, bringing them in. We're going to think about getting our feet up so that gravity can push the weight of our legs down into our hip sockets, and help to make sure that our pelvic bones, hopefully nothing got like jammed up when we were practicing those asymmetrical movements. It's almost like we're thinking of the backside of our pelvis spreading just a little bit and softening, coming out of all of those asymmetrical movements that we did. And even if we didn't do asymmetrical movements, because this is the only practice that we've done, or whatever, getting our feet up in the air is incredible. We have blood that kind of can pool, and lymphatic fluid that pools in our legs. So getting our feet up in the air helps to bring all of those fluids back into our body so that they can get processed and sent back out. I actually used to do this when I couldn't sleep as a kid, like a really little kid. I used to put my feet up and I would hold them up in the air until I was so tired that I would fall asleep. I always think it's amazing how, even like watching my own kids, how kids just know how to move their body in a way that brings balance and is what they need. It's so incredible to watch. So anyways, I'm going to show a couple of different variations of this. So one is going to be supported shoulder stand. So they're going to be two slightly different variations depending on what is the best for you specifically in this moment. The first is going to be like a slightly more active pose because you have to kind of hold your legs together. The next one is a little bit more relaxing, where you get to rest your legs against the wall. So lifting the hips, I might pull my little cushion back in under my bum. I want to keep it relatively low this time. I'm going to pull my knees in towards my belly and then extend my feet up towards the ceiling. So right here, I could be just like this. And if I'm holding for a long time and it starts to get uncomfortable, I can pause and unbend my knees and come back in, stretch them back up. If you're holding this particular pose, I would say maybe 5 minutes. It depends on what feels good in your body. I would maybe say like 5 minutes for this one. Or less if that doesn't feel good, or more if it feels good. The other option is legs up the wall. So fairly similar and slightly different. So when I'm coming into legs up the wall, I'm going to scooch my butt right over. I'm going to pivot and send my legs up again. And from here, I could stay with my pelvis right on the floor, my legs up. Another option could be to take my little cushion, lift, and come down. Then I'm getting a little bit of extension in my back, which may or may not feel nice. And then the arm's just gonna find a comfortable position. If it feels like you have to work to squeeze and hold your legs together, again, you can bind your legs here. So with that, that strap or belt that we had, you can even probably use like a little towel or something too. This is my favorite way to do this pose because I do have a really hard time softening my muscles. I feel like my normal, my natural state is uptight with my muscles tense. I have to very consciously relax. So when I have something supporting my legs here, my brain knows that my legs aren't gonna flop out to the sides, and it feels like I can soften on a much deeper level. So coming into this pose, we could hold here for between 5 and 15 minutes. And one last thing, you could also add weight onto your feet too. So again, same as same as before I had said, like if you're at home and you were wanting weight for your hips, you could put like a bag of rice on your hips. You could put like a bag of rice or something. I would say not something heavy and hard because I wouldn't want it to fall and hurt you. But something heavy and soft could come onto your feet, which is gonna add a little bit more weight, push our thigh bones a little bit more firmly into our hip sockets. And that feels really great for some people, and it feels really not great for other people. So depending on your unique body, you decide what is the best. So again, I kind of diverted a little bit. So settling in again, starting at the feet, scanning through our body. Every muscle that we bring our awareness to, we're softening that muscle. Letting our breathing be steady and gentle. And holding here, starting a timer for between, well, pausing the video first and then starting a timer between 5 and 15 minutes. Coming out of this pose here. And start to bend my knees. If I'm holding something on my feet here, I might just make sure that I'm not inadvertently dropping it on my face. Come all the way up just for a moment before I come down onto my back. If it's very uncomfortable for you to lay with your legs stretched out straight, then you are more than welcome to support under your knees. Again, here you could take weight on top of your body if that feels more relaxing. Make sure that you feel warm, the temperature feels good for your body. We can span our body one last time, starting down at the toes and slowly moving our way up to the head, softening every muscle that we become aware of on that journey. And then once you're ready, you can press pause, set a timer for between 5 and 15 minutes. And your practice is done. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you again soon.